the music. Okay.
Welcome to the Michael Rivero What Really Happened radio program.
It is Thursday, February 4th, 2021. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. And it's cold and wet and rainy here in Santa Claus, Indiana. They're expecting snow tonight. It's interesting because I'm seeing all these stories. Our Christmas plans. Okay, I'm hearing sound coming back from like a recording. Okay, I guess it's gone. Welcome to live radio, folks. This is how it works here. Anyway, I've been seeing all these news stories about an Arctic vortex that's coming down from up north. They're talking about 0-degree temperatures over much of the country, including here. And yet, looking at the weather guessers on my smartphone, they're not indicating it at all. And I keep telling Claire, there are times in my life I wish I had been a meteorologist, because that's the only job where you can be wrong that often and still get your paycheck to take home here. So I don't know who's right, but again, I saw all these stories about, let's see, my volume seems a little low as well. Is that a little better? There we go. Okay. Oh, okay. This is why I would, want to come on in a little bit early and set things up, make sure it's all working. All right. So where were we? We're here to do news. Then we're going to do phone calls. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. And again, sure happy it's Thursday. And let's just get on into it. I have a lot of news today, but I'm going to probably skip a little bit of it and try and open the phone lines a little bit earlier than I have been, because I got some emails saying, we can't get in. There's not enough time for the phone calls. And, I understand that there's a lot that's happening. It's all little stuff. I mean, there's nothing really big so far. It's kind of like when you're getting ready to boil water, and before it really gets boiling, there's just a lot of little bubbles coming up. And that's kind of what it feels like right now. And that maybe next week or the week after, we're going to be in a full boil, and there's going to be all kinds of interesting and fascinating things happening. Anyway, let's get right on into it. Looking at a story from Your Destination Now. This is one of those stories I was telling about. Every U.S. state will see below freezing temperatures on Monday as the polar vortex strikes, and that includes Hawaii. A lot of people, they talk to us about what life was like in Hawaii and how you never saw snow. And I said, no, you go up to the tops of the volcanoes on Maui and the Big Island, and there's plenty of snow there. There's actually a ski run there. And probably it's one of the few places in the country where you could go skiing in the morning and surfing in the afternoon, which was kind of weird. Some years back, we actually had a blizzard totally, white out the observatories on Mauna Kea, and this was in July. So we do get our share of weird weather over there. So they're, just err on the side of caution and take extra gloves and scarves and everything starting this weekend and heading into the start of next week. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in our government. And apparently, progressive columnist Katrina vanden Heuvel is out there just, celebrating the fact that Biden is expanding our already bloated government. And she's awarded him a seal of approval, declaring that the new administration, the era of small government is over. Now, I remember one of the founding fathers had a comment that government governs best, which governs least. I'm definitely in favor of small government. What was it that Reagan said? A government big enough to give you everything that you want is big enough to take everything that you have. And that is certainly true here. So vanden Heuvel wrote in an op-ed in the Washington Post that Biden is essentially declaring that the Washington consensus that favors deregulation, austerity, and pro-corporate trade policies is bankrupt. And so they're out there, yes, the money is going to be flowing from your pocket to all kinds of interesting and colorful liberal agenda items. We're coming up here on the impeachment trial in the Senate. Everybody is grandstanding on both sides. Apparently, the legal briefs have been completed. Maxine Waters is out there demanding that Donald Trump should be charged with premeditated murder for those riots that took place back on January 6th. Now, generally, when you're trying to put together a case, you go for what you can win. You want a winnable case. This one certainly is not, because there is absolutely nothing at all that Trump said to either incite the riots, let alone say, please go out and kill people, which, would be premeditated murder here. Now, interestingly enough, Mike Pence, following the inauguration, was back here in Indiana briefly. He's a Hoosier, he's a former governor of the state here, but he didn't stay here. Apparently, he has opened an office in Northern Virginia, an office of the former vice president, and he is living in the Washington, D.C. suburb, and he's going to be there until summer. So I'm wondering what it is that he is planning to do, now that he is gainfully unemployed, as it were. We're still hearing fallout from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was out there. She was promoting some of the QAnon stuff, which we recognized early on it was a psyop and it was garbage, but she got sucked in by it. And she's out there insisting that the November election was fraudulent. That one we all know was accurate here. And so they're going after her. They're just trying to crush down this idea that this election had any problems with it. So Representative Jim Jordan has accused Democrats of a double standard. As you know, they've tried to remove Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee tasks. And Jordan is saying, well, the same thing should apply to Ilhan Omar. And, what's going on there. And so far, it doesn't look like anything is really being accomplished regarding either Greene or Omar, or Alexandria occasionally has a cortex. And she is still reeling from this huge embarrassment. Now, for those of you who are a little late to the party, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out with this statement about how afraid she had been during the storming of the Capitol building, that she was afraid for her life, and it was a terrible experience. She tried to equate it to being sexually assaulted, and it just really was milking it for everything that it was worth. And then it turned out she hadn't actually been at the Capitol building. She had been down the street in another building where her office is located. Okay, not everybody has an office inside the Capitol building. So she's getting a lot of flack from people on social media. And there is a hashtag that goes hashtag Alexandria Ocasio-Smollett, which is poking fun at her for her claims that she narrowly escaped death during the protests at the Capitol building. Now, Tucker Carlson came on out chastising Alexandria, saying she's a narcissist. Yes, when you're a former bartender and all of a sudden you're a representative and a member of Congress, that can play with your ego. But he came on out and said, yeah, she lied about cowering in fear during the Capitol riot. Well, Alexandria, rather than apologize and say she misremembered or whatever, she's raising on a busted flush, because now she is making the claim that there were bombs planted around her office building, in addition to the Capitol as well. And she put that out on Twitter, and she's being savaged for that, because there were 3 pipe bombs found. None of them exploded, and nothing else happened down at the building where she was actually located. All of this, of course, is trying to build the case for a crackdown on everybody who doesn't absolutely love Joe Biden. And the former head of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center is suggesting that counterinsurgency tactics be used by the military against domestic extremists inside the United States of America. Now, this, of course, means suppression of free speech. It means, repression of the population. Now, NPR is reporting that Robert Grenier, who directed the CIA's counterterrorism program, said, "We may be witnessing the dawn of a sustained wave of violent insurgency within our own country, perpetrated by our own countrymen." Well, we certainly can't rule that out. I'd like to avoid that. I really would. The wrong people get shot in such things, but there is a lot of talk along those lines, and we may see, in fact, I can almost guarantee we'll see some false flag attacks blamed on Trump supporters, so that they can go on saying all Republicans are terrorists, which amounts to about half the population of the United States of America. All righty, over at the White House, they're already getting into the legal wrangling here, and apparently a Trump appointee, Roger Severino, was appointed to the Administrative Conference of the United States in August of 2020, and was then reappointed last month during Trump's last month in office. Now, his term was supposed to last 3 years, but he is claiming he received an email this week from Gautam Raghavan, the Deputy Director of the White House Presidential Personnel Office, asking him to resign and telling him that if he did not resign, he would be fired. Now, President Biden has no authority to terminate Mr. Severino's appointment to the council under 5 U.S.C. Section 595B or Article 2 of the Constitution. So Severino is seeking a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction to prevent the unlawful removal. So it's already getting tense inside the White House here. All righty, over at the Gateway Pundit, they're still looking back at the evidence of election fraud last November. And apparently a new video is about to surface from Detroit at the TCF Center, formerly known as Cabo Hall. And this was the site where Detroit city officials put cardboard over the windows to prevent anyone from looking inside. This is the place where poll workers were openly hostile to the GOP observers, and where hundreds of affidavits by election observers claim they witnessed voter fraud. And that includes witnessing vehicles delivering fraudulent ballots to this TCF Center early on the morning of November 4th. And apparently somebody got that on video, and that is about to be released. Now, the corporate media has launched a campaign to basically demonize anybody who questions the accuracy and honesty and transparency of the 2020 election. This, I would like to point out, is the same corporate media that was screaming election fraud when Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. But now they're in total in lockstep. Our elections are honest, they're fair, they're verifiable. And if that were true, then why are all these state election commissions, going to court to prevent any kind of an examination of what's going on? They blew it. They had to do so much fraud to put Biden over Trump's landslide. Everybody noticed what they did, and now the corporate media is out there. They're dangling a little watch in front of you and saying the election was honest, the election was honest, the election was honest. And anybody who doesn't go along with that is going to be attacked and deplatformed in the usual sort of Soviet-style repression that is coming to roost here in the United States of America. Now, the other day we talked about the rather abusive treatment that Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow, received when he was being interviewed by one of the Newsmax anchors who tried to basically get him to say that the election was honest, and Mike wouldn't do that. He said, there's all kind of evidence for fraud there. And the anchor simply walked off the set and ended the interview. Well, apparently management came on out there and said, you're going to have to apologize because Mike is a friend of this network. And what that means is MyPillow spends a lot of their advertising money on that network, and that buys a lot of protection. And if you don't believe that, think back to that Monsanto lawsuit regarding their synthetic bovine growth hormone and what happened in that whole fiasco. Remember, the conclusion of that lawsuit was the revelation there is no law requiring the corporate media to tell you the truth about anything. And once you understand that, you begin to understand this matrix of lies in which we live. And we look at these little electronic screens and think that's reality, and far from it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about COVID-19 because that is still out there. And we are hearing more and more reports of adverse reactions following the second coronavirus shot. And this article that came out of no less than CNN is basically admitting that second coronavirus shot can be a doozy. Basically, they're saying if you have to get that second dose on time. Doctors have been warning people that the first dose can have a kick to it. And now they're starting to realize that the second dose can have more severe adverse reactions than the first dose. I think we talked about this teenager in Israel had to be put in the ICU with a heart inflammation just days after getting his second shot. And here's something else that people need to be paying attention to. This is coming out of womensystems.com. Apparently, there has been an analysis of the data, and it shows that people who had COVID and then survived are twice as likely to suffer side effects from Pfizer's vaccine. Well, if they've had COVID, then they have natural immunity. Why would they need the shot? But apparently some people have been convinced to take it. And if they've had COVID and recovered from it, they are twice as likely to have an adverse reaction. Over in Great Britain, they're out there saying that Britain could vaccinate its way out of lockdown by April 7th. That's the latest date. Great Britain will finish injecting all over 50s. Ministers are claiming it's the key to ending restrictions and so forth and so on. They're really pushing that vaccine. And the harder they push it, I mean, we're talking about a disease that is so weak, you have to be tested to know that you have it, and a vaccine that's so safe and effective that people are having to be threatened to take it. All righty. The CDC has now joined the chorus of voices saying that if you are watching the Super Bowl with friends this coming Sunday, that you should not shout or cheer during the game. And this is not humor. Apparently, this is really what's going on. They don't really understand the emotionality of how football works, especially the Super Bowl. But CDC is saying you can clap and stomp your feet, and you can use handheld noisemakers, rattles, and things like that. But otherwise, don't do, and maintain your social distance here. Okay, CNBC and Shepard Smith got footage of Florida residents at a supermarket in Naples, Florida. They were not wearing face masks. They weren't maintaining distance. They were basically, just living the normal life. And Florida is actually doing better than states that have mandated the masks. So there's something weird going on there, and of course, Twitter is out there filled with outrage. How dare those Florida people dare to live their life normally? I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. And apparently, over in Arizona, an emergency room physician, Cleavon Gilman, responded to the video by saying, "Let them die. If they're not wearing a mask, they should not get the vaccine." So it's less science, more politics, more emotions. Here's an interesting story. This is coming out of Pasadena, California. Apparently, a man walked into this restaurant and ordered some chicken and waffles, and the staff refused because he wasn't wearing a mask. So he pulled a gun and stole the chicken and waffles. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And it occurs to me that the man who robbed the Roscoe's in Pasadena for the chicken and waffles ought to be easy to identify because he's the only person on the security camera footage not wearing a mask. So that should make life easier for them. On a more serious note, the protests in Paris over the lockdowns and the so-called recovery plan are continuing to escalate. And France's major trade unions have called for a nationwide strike to protest the government's measures against COVID-19 over fears the steps will further affect jobs and wages. And apparently the General Confederation of Labor, considered a leading trade union in the country, has called on workers all across France to join the nationwide strike and participate in mass demonstrations to protest against the lockdowns. So France is still struggling to revitalize their economy, and they're kind of weak. Also in France, you're going to love this one. Apparently, French police raided an orgy at a warehouse outside of Paris last Friday. There were 81 people there taking part in whatever it is you do at these affairs here. And apparently officers arrived on the scene at 9 p.m. after neighbors reported there was a large gathering taking place. And apparently at least 81 of the orgy participants were fined 135 euros each. You have to love those French there. What is it that Woody Allen used to say? Sex is the most beautiful thing that can happen between two people, but between five, it's really dynamite. Anyways, apparently Joe Biden is out there. There's still this argument over the COVID relief. How much is it going to be? Who's going to get it? And Biden is telling Democrats he's willing to be more selective as to who gets the COVID relief checks, but he refuses to reduce them in terms of size. So they're still nattering and gromishing about all of that while people continue to suffer and go hungry here. Mitt Romney, interestingly enough, is introducing a plan to create a new welfare program granting parents of young children $350 per child every month in perpetuity, and not just because of the coronavirus pandemic. And might not be a bad idea given how stressed everything is right now. Turning to the international news now, apparently Netanyahu is now trying to create an anti-Iran alliance with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain to run parallel to the Biden administration, Arabs48.com. And it cited Israel Hayom, which claimed that Netanyahu wanted to use his visits to the UAE and Bahrain to coordinate stances related to the Iranian issue. So they're going to deal with the Iranian issue. And remember, Israel's been at the forefront of screaming that Iran is just weeks away from having a nuclear bomb, and they've been screaming that for about 30 years now, and it really has not happened. Article coming on out of Ron Paul's Institute, basically saying that the Biden administration may have already set itself up to fail on the re-implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal. And apparently he's pointing out that this hardline stance of Iran must be in total compliance before the U.S. Will do anything may in fact be what breaks it. And of course, we know that Israel does not want the deal to happen. Certainly the American people do, but I guess we don't really count. Over at the U.S. Justice Department, they are working on finding a legal authority to seize oil that does not belong to the United States and then sell it. Arguing that Iran would benefit if they don't do so. In other words, they're trying to find a legal authority to justify piracy on the high seas. And the cargo in question is 2 million barrels of oil sitting in the Liberian Achilles tanker off of Brazil. And the Justice Department is arguing the ship acquired the oil in a ship-to-ship transfer near a United Arab Emirates port and presented it as Iranian oil benefiting terrorists. The cargo was meant to be sent to China and was identified as Basran crude from Iraq, not Iran. So they're still out there. Again, they're trying to make piracy on the high seas look glamorous and attractive. Well, go over to Disney and the Pirates of the Caribbean here. I remember what the Pirates of the Caribbean ride really looked like before all the feminists and the woke people had their go at it. Israel has apparently attacked southern Syria again. The warplanes attacked a military base in Quneitra, damaging a site which is claimed was being used by Iran as a storage facility. Details are still emerging. Oh, my goodness. Got to take another break here. Anyway, Israel's behaving like Israel again. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the international news here. And apparently a plan to pull 12,000 U.S. troops out of Germany ordered by Donald Trump has been put on hold by the Biden administration. And apparently the new Biden administration is more friendly to NATO. They are keen on confronting Russia. Bad idea, in my opinion, but they don't listen to me. And so they basically halted the plan to bring troops out of Europe. And meanwhile, people are still reacting to Biden's decision to not pull troops out of Afghanistan. And I'm looking at this article coming out of Reason.com, which is a good resource, by the way. ABC News is reporting that Biden's administration is preparing for the likelihood that troops will remain in Afghanistan past a May deadline established in an agreement with the Taliban because of ongoing attacks and assassinations there. The war machine is definitely cranking up. And one reason why war with Russia would be a bad idea has to do with their new Zircon missile. This is a hypersonic Mach 8 anti-ship missile. It is designed to kill aircraft carriers. And basically, this article over at Anti-Empire is saying that the Zircon basically means that American aircraft carriers are going to be limited to bombing small, poor countries. I think a while back I made a comment about how the United States is always preparing for the last war rather than dealing with the current realities. And the example I use is going into World War II, where the attitude was that, the battleships were the mainstay of naval combat, and the aircraft carriers were nice and, so forth and so on, but they weren't really the game changers. Compared to the battleships. And of course, World War II showed that the carriers really were of paramount importance in that conflict. And we're going to see the same thing here. We're going into this war thinking the aircraft carrier is supreme, and tell that to the crew of the Gerald Ford. And meanwhile, China and Russia have developed these hypersonic anti-ship missiles for which the United States does not have any workable defense. Mach 8 and maneuverable, that's a tough problem here. All right, let's get into the economic news here. There's actually a little bit of good news out there on the horizon. The number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment dropped to a 2-month low of just 779,000 if we believe the official numbers. But the interpretation is the labor market is now stabilizing. The problem is it may be stabilizing at a much lower level than it was pre-pandemic, pre-economic playing games and everything. Folks are still talking about what happened with the GameStop stocks and going up against the hedge funds. Dave Kranzler is quoted in an article in Investment Watch blog saying that silver is now being pumped on the Wall Street bets, trying to suck in the retail traders and get them in there and try and get various stocks pushed back up here. And I noticed that all the investigations into what happened are focusing on GameStop and Robinhood and Reddit, and they're not looking at how the hedge funds have been doing business, because they're all such loyal, reliable donors every campaign season here. Another article, this is from oilprice.com, and it is hitting a point that's been a problem for a long time. Most people really don't know about it. Even a lot of the retail investors, the day traders, aren't really aware of how big a problem this is. But it's called naked short selling, which is a threat to our capital markets, the free market in general, and it's basically unfair anyway. And now, because of what happened with GameStop, people are starting to take a close look at how Wall Street does what it does. And basically what a naked short is, and it's illegal, by the way, but it's still going on. In a normal short sell, the short seller will borrow some stock at the current price and then hang on to it, betting that the price of the stock is going to drop, at which point he buys the same number of stocks and returns them to the person he borrowed them from, while keeping the difference in the prices as his profit. That's a normal short sell. It's a derivative. The naked short is when somebody goes on out and they don't actually have the stock in hand. And it is illegal, but it does happen an awful lot. We'd like to see some reform of Wall Street. Unfortunately, we didn't see that under Trump, and I don't think we're going to see it underneath Biden, because it's all about the Benjamins. Okay, we've all been hearing about, ethics and so forth and so on here. Apparently, Janet Yellen is getting an ethics waiver in order to lead the regulator meeting on GameStop insanity after taking $810,000 from Citadel. They're not even really trying to hide the corruption anymore. Oh, no, this corruption is okay. We have granted a waiver. All right. Back in 2006, Jim Cramer actually gave an interview talking about how the hedge funds would openly manipulate the markets to their advantage. But nobody wants to look at that. They want to pound on Reddit and Robinhood and GameStop here. All righty, getting on back here to some more international. Let's see. Well, we'll just skip that one. We mentioned this yesterday, but we're going to mention it again. The U.S. Mint is warning that it cannot meet the surging demand for physical silver and physical gold. And you need to be very, very careful. There are all these paper, gold, and silver products. And there's a lot more paper than there is physical metal. And this article is warning you've got the Federal Reserve just printing money like crazy. They're trying to monetize the COVID relief package deal as fast as Congress can pass the bills. But even then, demand for bullion was already surging. But with the last week or so on the heels of the Reddit raiders taking aim at silver, which they're denying they were doing, but there's still rumors out there that somebody's going to do a move on silver. Demand for silver and gold coins has exploded. So the bullion dealers are running dry of stock, and physical premium to paper silver prices are soaring to record high. Okay, over at Zero Hedge, Von Greyers is out there singing the song that paper silver is toxic. And basically he's saying the most blatant toxic forgery is carried out by central banks around the world, which includes the Federal Reserve. These banks manufacture tens of trillions of dollars of fiat paper or electronic entries and then tell the people it's real money. No, it isn't. It's an instrument of debt. If ordinary people print money, you go to jail. Okay. But when central banks print money, no one goes to jail. And it's a scam. It's a 300-year-old scam that we've all been raised to believe is the way things are supposed to be. I remember when I was in elementary school, they had a little film strip. You probably, if you're my age, you remember the film strip. There was a phonograph record, and when the bell would sound, you would go to the next frame on the film strip. And I remember watching one where they were saying that the Federal Reserve was great, and it was the only way that we could run the economy, and it was best for everybody, which we now know was as big a lie as Bert the Turtle, duck and cover. Google owner Alphabet has announced a record 57 billion with a B revenue in its fourth quarter as advertising recovers despite the pandemic. And probably because of the pandemic, online advertising is soaring right now. Which is a good thing for those of us who run websites and such. But it's getting to be a jungle out there. One of the things I really hate, as long as we're on the topic here, all of a sudden somebody got the bright idea of sending advertising to text messaging systems. And a lot of these are for porn websites. And of course, if you dare click on the link, your smartphone gets infected with something that you really don't want to have there. So you need to be very careful about that. I really have not seen a really good anti-malware program for the smartphones. They seem like they haven't really caught up with the problem yet. Okay, now over in Long Beach, California, Kroger has closed 25% of their stores, or has announced the closure of 25% of their stores, because the city basically mandated that large grocery companies pay workers an extra $4 an hour during the pandemic. And Kroger just said, well, no, we're just going to go ahead and close the stores. And they're going to be closed on April 17th. And that's the Food for Less on the South Street and the Ralph's at the intersection of Los Coyotes Diagonal and Wardlow Road in East Long Beach. Now, I'm familiar with that part of the city, because I used to work down in Long Beach on the Queen Mary. This is going to affect, the poorer parts of the city that depend on having those markets nearby. And of course, it's certainly going to affect some of these employees at the store. Some have been there as long as 12 years they've worked there. Here's another one. We keep hearing about this as well. This is from Business Insider. Kroger and its Mariano's stores will no longer give customers coins as change. Apparently, they're screaming there is a widespread coin shortage. And I don't know how real that is or not, but apparently Kroger is saying, please pay with exact change, exact money, or if you are owed money back, if you pay with bills, they will load your change onto a customer loyalty card that will be applied to the next purchase. And I think it's another way of trying to push for the cashless society. Okay, let's see. Biden is signing an executive order aimed at naturalizing 9 million migrants and reuniting the separate families. Now, I actually like the idea of reuniting the families. But I definitely have a problem at a time when there is massive unemployment of legal American citizens, of allowing them to just pour on in. And according to this other article that came out of Madness Hub, Biden is basically declaring that illegal immigrants have to be treated the same as American citizens. First and foremost, they're going to be allowed to vote Democrat in the coming elections here. So Biden is getting ready to sign a new slew of new executive orders on immigration, asylum, and regional migration. Meanwhile, over in Sweden, which sort of led Europe in the immigration phenomenon, they have seen a 79% spike in shootings. The government is lamenting the high levels of violence in the country. I'm hearing something coming through the feed. Anyway, so and nobody wants to say that the violence is coming from these immigrants who were made a lot of promises to come to Europe. You're going to get free stuff, and they, pardon me, They didn't get what they were promised, and they're acting out here. Okay, story coming out of legal insurrection. You're always hearing about, oh, racism, racial incidents, and so forth and so on. And apparently somebody did a study of 1,200 reported racial incidents at Michigan State and discovered that there were only 8 cases that really violated the school's bias and discrimination policies. So it sounds like the bias reporting system is being abused just a little bit. And, you know, golly gee whiz, who would have seen that coming? It was the same thing when, you know, the rape hysteria was gripping the country back in the 1990s, and rape became the second most falsely reported crime in the United States because everybody wanted to be victim. You know, there were even T-shirts for women that said potential rape survivor. I mean, that's how out of control it gets when you glorify the victims, and then all of a sudden everybody sees they can get their 15 minutes of fame by being a victim. I'm a victim of this. I'm a victim of that. No, we have to learn how not to be victims anymore, okay? Because otherwise we'll just get victimized all that much more. Apparently, a Wisconsin school district has suspended several of its teachers after they assigned a controversial homework assignment asking students how they would punish slaves if they were slave owners. Whatever happened to reading, writing, and arithmetic? And teaching these kids skills that are going to let them get high-paying jobs and contribute to our technology and our economy and rebuilding this country. Apparently over in the District of Columbia, their public schools have announced they're going to be using a race-based curriculum sent out by Black Lives Matter to teach students. And it prioritizes disrupting the nuclear family. I don't see how anybody's going to get a job with that either. We had a caller who talked about this yesterday over at the University of Chicago. They are looking at creating an entire department around critical race studies. And critical race theory, of course, is the idea that the United States is hopelessly mired in racism and is irretrievable, and therefore something dramatic has to be done. Over in San Francisco, they are renaming the arts department. It was previously titled the Visual and Performing Arts and was abbreviated to VAPA, and now it's going to be renamed as the San Francisco Unified School District Arts Department. Why is that? Well, because acronyms are now seen as a symptom of white supremacy. So I imagine that's going to make the people over at the FBI and CIA, not to mention NASA, feel very, very uncomfortable. Okay, we're coming up here on a commercial break. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines now. Area code 512-248-8252, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and the phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. Now, getting on back to these stories about how our schools aren't really about education anymore. They're about indoctrination. Our kids are not being taught to think. They are taught to have opinions and to fight, fight for those opinions, no matter what they are. Anyway, apparently over again San Francisco, the Unified School District is looking at possibly dropping academic achievement for admission. And this is one of the schools that is considered the best high school in the country. And all of a sudden, because of wokeness and racism and the rest of it, they're saying they're going to drop academic achievement for admission. Talk about, the dumbing down of America. And I have to wonder what the thinking is of these people who are bemoaning the fact that we are losing technological leadership to countries like Taiwan and China and Japan, and well, pretty much everybody else right now. And then at the same time, they're hamstringing our kids with Common Core and this other stuff as well. All righty. apparently the ACLU was on Twitter basically trying to debunk what they describe as myths about trans students in sports, about how men who identify as being women don't really have any kind of an advantage over real women. And it's just flat out propaganda to serve the liberal agenda. And apparently at the exclusive Dalton School in New York, there's apparently an anti-racist curriculum in every class that parents are now objecting to. And it isn't that the parents are being racist. They, like me, are concerned that these kids are going to get out of school, get out of college. They're going to have a degree in critical race theory, and they're going to wind up working at a fast food restaurant here. And now they're even out there trying to claim that Bernie Sanders' mittens are a sign of white privilege. Okay, I mean, that's just how crazy woke culture has become. Bernie Sanders' mittens are not a sign of white privilege. Bernie Sanders' mittens are a sign that Bernie Sanders' hands are cold. Okay? Anyway, we've got callers on the line. Let's go to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Fine.
I just want to, the first thing I want to do is address a caller yesterday. I think his name is also Mark.
Okay, could you get closer to the microphone because I can barely hear you?
All right, sorry. Can you hear me any better now?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, I just want to talk first. Yesterday, some guy named Mark from New York City commented that I attacked Biden enough, that the way I used to attack Trump. Well, there's a reason I don't attack Biden like that, because I know what a dirtbag Biden is. I don't have to keep on saying it.
Okay, Mark, I got to put you on hold. Mark, I got to put you on hold. We got to do a station identification. Okay. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. We're talking with Mark in North Carolina. Mark, just sort of pick it up where you left off.
Yeah, like I was saying, I don't have to criticize Biden because I know who and what Biden is, and I would assume most of the people are listening to your show. The man's a dirtbag. Doesn't mean this country any good. He's the recipient of a completely stolen election, and he's dangerous. Okay? With Trump, I criticize him because he ran in a certain thing, and then in certain things he lied about himself. I mean, his policies, including some of his policies in the Middle East. He should have gotten us out of there. He shouldn't have kept us in places like Syria or even Afghanistan. On top of that, he created this damn vaccine that's now killing people and killing a lot of people. Okay? That's my problem with him. But Biden, I don't expect anything else. I expect nothing but bad from him. And so far, I haven't been disappointed. Everything the man is doing is bad, period. Okay? Now, I think one thing, though, is these people are really dumb, too, okay? Because by picking on the military and trying to purge the military, which means you're going to have to purge probably the vast majority of the U.S. military today, this leads to something I was listening to. I had Alex Jones on earlier, and he had Dr. Pachenik on again. Now, Pachenik said, predicted certain things. It didn't come true. Yes. He says not everything fast enough. He said he still thinks basically that the military will throw Biden out of there. Now, he said they'll reinstall Trump. I kind of doubt they would do that. I think they might do what Miramar did, and he even mentioned Miramar.
Myanmar.
They may get rid of. Yeah, how do you spell? How do you pronounce
Myanmar? Miramar is
Burma, right?
Yeah, it used to be Burma. Miramar is a city near San Diego where they used to have the Top Gun school.
Okay, but anyway, all right, let's call it Burma.
Okay, Burma.
They threw out the civilian government. The military said they're going to take over for a year until they're going to hold new elections because the election was fraudulent.
Yes.
Okay, sounds familiar, right?
Yes.
And evidently the IMF didn't like that, and I guess the globalists didn't like it, but they did it anyway. And I see something possibly happening like this. I can't see the military just standing back and letting things go the way they're going, and on top of that, the purging. Now, on top of that, he wants to start wars with everybody, including Russia.
Yes.
How do you expect, let's say it didn't become nuclear, how would he possibly expect with a demoralized military, okay, who can't stand him, all right, don't want to be involved in wars, have nothing against the Russian people, Russia for the most part, how does he expect to go to war, or even with Iran, how does he expect to win a war against any of those countries? We get clobbered. We get destroyed. You know, like you just pointed out about those missiles, we'd lose probably our whole fleet of aircraft carriers. Okay? And that's, of course, saying that's considering it doesn't go nuclear, which isn't impossible when you have this senile old fool in charge with his finger in a nuclear trigger. He might just pull that trigger.
I am hoping that the two-man rule still applies, where Biden can't preemptively launch a nuclear attack without a second person in the National Command Authority validating that order.
Yeah, who knows what he's got in the command authority there either, you know? I don't trust any of these people that Biden appoints, all right? And by the way, the chair also pointed out about General Flynn's brother being appointed the 4-star and ahead of, I think it's CCOM now, the Pacific, Pacific, not the fleet, Pacific forces, okay?
Yes.
So that shows you that, and he pointed out, this also basically shows that there is a war within the military. There's a lot of conflict. And if we do go to some kind of a civil war, it probably would be a civil war within the military also. And by Biden picking on and trying to, purge the military, he's just going to get people even more fired up. That's all he's going to do, or they're going to do, whoever's behind him. Okay? That's the last thing you want to do. All right? And, people just, I guess it's fortunate in a way that they're not that smart. But then again, a lot of them are insane, and that makes them even more dangerous. Because somebody who's insane, well, you talk about having a gun. Let's say you have a semi-automatic. Let's say you have a AR-15, AK-47 or something, and you're completely insane. Now, obviously, I'm all for the Second Amendment. But if somebody's totally insane, just let's say gets out of a mental institution, and you put a loaded AK-47 in his hand, I wouldn't want to be anywhere close to that person. Okay.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. When you got a nuclear-armed nation with with psychopaths in charge, including and the head psychopath is on top of everything else, he's demented. Okay, that's a very dangerous situation. Mike, wouldn't you say so?
It's very dangerous. I mean, he's loaded up his cabinet with a whole bunch of Obama war hawks, and I'm seeing this being commented on all over the place, except for the corporate media, that, very obviously the American war machine is gearing up for a major confrontation. And I think what's happening is, remember I said before, our government is bemoaning the fact that other countries are pulling ahead of us economically and technologically, and, the U.S. can't catch up. So, let's bomb those competitors into rubble, and then we'll be the best on the planet, which is basically what happened in World War II. The World War II ended. The United States was the only nation that still had all of its factories intact.
Except we don't have the ability to bomb those countries into rubble anymore. If anything, we'll be bombed into rubble, or we'll all be bombed into rubble if it goes nuclear.
Yes.
Right? That's the difference with World War II. And remember this, too. People think we won World War II by ourselves. We didn't. Well, we beat the Japanese mostly. But against the Germans, the Soviets actually did the brunt of the fighting. Okay? And we also had a lot of help from the British and all that.
Yes.
So it wasn't just a one country thing. But
well, in the Pacific, the Australians also played a major part against Japan, and they don't get enough credit for that either.
Yeah, that's true. They did.
Yes,
play
they did.
A part also, but
yes.
But the thing is, we don't have anywhere close to the type of a population now that would want to go to war or would willingly go to war now anyway, to any kind of a major war. You start a draft, you're starting to unite a lot of the left and the right anyway, the left populist and the right populist, as it is now. And you're going to unite them even more if you go to a draft. And you're going to have riots that probably could take this country down right there and then. The riots would dwarf the riots of the 60s because
Yes.
people are not that easily fooled anymore. So they're playing with fire. They're playing with a very dangerous type of fire. All right. And unfortunately, I would say, well, they really know better. But I can't say that because I believe a lot of these people are on psych meds and other kind of medications that interfere with their thinking.
Yes.
And I believe that Biden is, like I said, not only on psych meds, he's on all kinds of meds, probably keeping him at least halfway going. And the man's demented. I don't know how this is going to end, Mike. I'll tell you. It doesn't look like it's going to end well. All right?
No, it doesn't. We're heading for some very, very dark times.
Not to mention very severe economic times. All this spending, and they're not bragging about it that they want a bigger government. What are you going to? How are you going to have it? We're going to go broke any day. It's got to happen.
We're already broke. I mean, we're broke. We're hopelessly in debt. I mean, we literally went bankrupt back in 1933, and we never recovered.
People ought to know too that Russia is not in debt. They're actually doing very well financially. Their economy, if it's not booming, it's doing very well. It's diversified now.
Yes.
Not only a big oil and gas producer, but a big food producer. And they produce good organic foods too, not the kind of garbage, GMO, Bill Gates type garbage that we're producing. So, I mean, and they're not as locked down as we are either, from what I understand. I don't know about their vaccines. I wouldn't take any vaccine, but I understand it's not an mRNA vaccine either. So it's probably... No,
it isn't. It's a more traditional. Yeah.
Yes, but I still wouldn't take it. Okay? I don't believe in vaccines except for very serious diseases. You know what I mean? That's one thing. But, like, I did have a tetanus shot about 10 years ago after breaking up a dog fight, and I had my hand badly mauled, and the doctor said probably and I started looking it up and figured, I don't want to take a chance. And tetanus usually doesn't have many side effects. I mean, the tetanus shot. But you don't want to catch tetanus.
Now, they tested the dogs for rabies, right?
Yeah. Well, my dog, I knew had rabies, okay? The other dog, I wasn't sure, but I found out that he had rabies also, because the other dog's the one that, well, my hand got stuck in mine's mouth. He's a pit bull, Okay. He's unfortunately with me. He didn't mean it, but that jaw was locked into my hand. He thought. Oh yeah,
that's why they're prized as fighting dogs.
Yeah, so it was locked into my hand. So he was sorry about it afterwards. Okay.
Yeah.
But, did some damage to my hand, so I had to get, so I did have to get a tetanus shot. I almost had to get rabies shots because I wasn't sure about the other dog. The other dog was an Aussie, and he was biting me. I was trying to rescue him and keep him alive. He was biting me mostly in my shoulder and the back, So I was pretty badly mauled after that. But I did get a tetanus shot then. But that's it. I'm no shots since, no flu shots. Never had a flu shot. Never tended to have a flu shot. And I'm certainly have no intention of getting this horrible vaccine that they're putting out now. Okay.
Yeah.
Even no matter who puts it out. But if I had a gun pointed at my head, I'd take the Russian one before I took out Sputnik 5 because it seems to be a little bit more traditional.
Yes.
Okay. So, but anyway, that's it, Mike. Like I said, people better wake up before it's too late. All right. We better start understanding where, the dangers we're facing now. All right. That's it. Thanks. And like I said, believe me, I got no use for Biden. This guy is trying to say maybe I'm a shill for Biden. No, I hate the man. I hate both parties, but I really hate the Democrats for what they've become. They're not the Democrats. They're not the Democratic Party of JFK or FDR or anything like that anymore. Okay, so let you know that. All right, Mike, take it easy. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks a lot for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What is on your mind today?
Yeah, Mike. Good day to you and all you guys. Yeah, Mike. I'm glad you opened the lines up earlier because one guy, because so you got a lot of callers want to call in. I think 45 minutes of news is a good time. Don't you open up 15 minutes early? I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, but there's so much that's happening. I still have half my talking points that I didn't get to. So.
Yeah. Here's what I want to talk about, Mike. I'm gonna get a little excited, but I'm gonna calm it down a little bit. First off, I am so disgusted with this bumbling buffoon Biden.
Yes.
And you know what? I have some Irish in me, Mike. And you know what? I'm a white man, and I do not approve of what Biden's doing. I say he's not going to be. We're not going to let him get away with it. We are the majority, okay? And you keep the white women out of it. We're not going to go to the white, black women, all that. And all. I say right now, me as a white man, I'm not happy about this immigration problem. You got the Mexican government now saying that, you know what? They're all things bets are off the border, off the table now. All these illegals from Central America come on through Mexico right in the United States. Okay, it's all over the news today, right now. It's all over all the news networks, okay? So you got this buffoon Biden telling all these Mexicans, Central Americans, and everybody, come on in here. They busted a bunch of Iranians at the border, Chinese. Did you see the Iranians they busted at the border, Mike?
Yes.
Did you hear about it?
Yep.
Okay, it's all over the news today. Iranians, Chinese, Mexicans, Central Americans are all coming through that damn border. Now, this Biden should be arrested right then and there. This guy needs to be arrested, Biden. He is not my president. He's an occupant of the White House. He needs to be arrested. The military needs to coup this sorry bastard because he's taking our country to hell. He's going to destroy this country. Mike, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
If I'm an angel mother or father, and I was a liberal, say one of these angel mothers or fathers were liberal at one time, and one of their loved ones got murdered, how do you think they are now, Mike? How are these liberal angel mothers and fathers now? The one of their loved ones was murdered by an illegal alien, let alone taking jobs away from white Americans and black Americans and every other American's an illegal citizen. What do these people not understand, Mike? The one is illegal. They come here illegally. They are aliens, and they're here illegally. They're breaking every damn law there is. Biden should be arrested, that dirty. Look, I'm going to tell you what it is, Mike. He is a filthy Irishman. He's not my
go easy on that. Please go easy on that because the lovely Lady Claire is part Irish, and I'm quite fond of her.
Well, I am too, Mike. I'm Irish, okay? I am Irish, Mike, and I don't approve of what Biden's doing. That's okay. My father is Irish. I have half my family's Irish. Were you kidding? Who's kidding you here? But I'll tell you right now, I'm not happy about this with this licky, kissy, touchy, feely nonsense, liberalism, bull crap. Okay, Ronald Reagan was a Democrat at one time. He's an Irishman, and he realized, hey, he was in the wrong. He had to switch over. He's like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was an Irishman who was liberal at one time, and he realized what the heck. But Reagan blew it with immigration in California. Because look at California, Mike, almost 8.5 million, 9 million illegals in that state.
Yes.
My brother couldn't even find work. Costa Mesa's destroyed. A lot of these cities in Los Angeles and California are destroyed, man.
Yes.
Gangs everywhere. Who's kidding who here, Mike? And this Biden is only doing this with these demon rat schmucks so he can get the Democratic Party locked in with all these more votes. This whole damn thing's about vote.
Yes.
White man. Orange man, bad man. Orange man, bad. You got to stop, Mike. It's disgusting and disgraceful. Now let's get on to China. Did you see the news about the satellite? Did you see what's going on Mars, Mike? The Chinese are literally telling the United States, stubbing their nose at us, we're going to take over Mars before you, and we're going to colonize Mars with a bunch of Chinese, red communist Chinese.
Okay.
Screw you, white Northern Europeans.
Well, at least the planet's the right color.
40 years ago, those Chinese, 40 years ago, those damn Chinese were riding on bicycles, 99% of them.
Yes.
We went over to a Tricky Dick. Tricky Dick opened up the bamboo curtain. Ooh, the Forbidden City. It's all spooky in there. And then this idiot opens up that damn country, and now they're dictating to us. You know, they're using old Chinese water torture. Drip, 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 right on your forehead till you go crazy. And that's what these Chinese are doing with this Wuhan flu. They did it in 68. They're doing it now. This has all been a scam. This whole freaking corona nonsense was a scam. Yeah, people are dying. They made a super flu is what they've done. They made a super flu. Just eat a lot of damn chicken soup. Whatever. Chicken soup and drink a lot of clean water. Okay? And Kaleido Silver. Whatever you can. But this crap with this Wuhan flu is nonsense. What they're doing with the double mask now. And this Biden, how he got, Mike, I still do, for the life of me, I totally 100% agree with you. These people stole this election, and they're trying to use a narrative that the white women are so liberal, so embracing of homosexuality, of immigration, of abortion. They're using all these lying narratives that the white women is for all this, and I just totally don't believe that. And I know Claire doesn't believe that.
No.
She doesn't believe in all these abortions and the gays going all over, coming out of the closet like crazy now. And every other thing that's going on. They're getting away from Jesus Christ, God. You can't even talk about God anymore. You can't even talk about the founding fathers. They're all racist. They're all terrorists. The founding fathers are terrorists, Mike? Seriously? What's wrong with our country? These kids, all the white kids that are going to schools right now are like, hey, man, these founding fathers are bad men. They're terrorists. I'm for BLM. I'm for Antifa. What the hell happened here? My father went to war for this country, Mike. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my brother, 2 brothers in Vietnam. Okay? And they're white men who love this country, love their founding fathers, and love our Constitution, and love our Bill of Rights. And we got to put up with this nonsense from these Zionist pigs, but they make sure that Star of David's protected in Israel. Oy vey, oy, goy, there's so many oyes, oy vey. Who's kidding who? I'm fed up with this crap, Mike. And I'm fed up with Biden. He's a scumbag.
Well, that's the record there. I mean, he's only been in office, 2.5 weeks, and already people are fed up with him?
And he's destroyed the country.
I would say definitely the honeymoon is over.
He's destroyed the country. In less than a month, he's destroyed this country already with his bumbling buffoonery. And President Trump should have never allowed him to call him a clown on national TV. Never. That should have been, he should have been reputed. Trump should have hit him like a ton of bricks. And as far as Mark was talking about Russia and all that, I got to tell some Mark. Hey, Mark, the Russians got a rocket to go 7 times the speed of sound. One rocket and EMP would blow out the whole United States. It's one of them right over the Midwest.
Well, it's mostly an anti-ship missile, the Zircon. Tom, I got to let you go here. Calm down, take a Valium, and we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and let's see. We're going to go to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. Yeah, Mark has it halfway right again. Trump's didn't say he was just supporting any vaccine. He said an effective and safe vaccine. That's not counting this vaccine that's going on now. And as we know, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is coming out, which is supposed to be different. So any of these guys...
the DNA versus RNA vaccine.
Yeah, any of these guys that want to call in like Joe or Stewart from Maine and Sniffle from Mark, go right ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't think they've been listening very long because obviously they've never heard Mark sing the extols of socialism and socialist leaders and Bernie Sanders and, the whole scenario that Mark represents. And I like Mark. I've been to his website. Mark puts out some good information, but I am going to say, just like I will about Trump, when there's a mistake made, there's a mistake. Tom had a good call. He was right on about immigration, which brings me, he's always right on about immigration. He always has pretty good facts and statistics on it, which brings me to my point on it. This whole world we're seeing nations locked down, nobody can come in, nobody can come out, yet we're having illegals come here. We don't even know who the hell they are, where they're coming from, or what they are, and they're just allowed, or just come on in, we got the green light here, because Biden said so. And this Republican Congress, what is with this Congress? We're not going to let him do anything. We're going to stop him. He's going to let him do anything. They put up about as much opposition as is that magical cyclone fencing you've talked about, Michael.
Yes.
And so I don't see where this or how this is going to stop until these people get extremely mad and upset and complain and call and just ring the phone off the hook. And yes, protest. Use your First Amendment right and protest. There's nothing wrong with it. And as we're seeing, that these protesters were at the Capitol, we're Antifa people, and we're seeing it over and over again. I heard a good one the other day. Oh my God, it was something to do with the Smollett, Alexandria Cortez Smollett or something like that.
Yes, it's the hashtag. They're making fun of her claim that she feared for her life back on January 6th, and it turns out she wasn't even in the building at the time.
Okay, now why isn't somebody bringing up censorship or something like that for her? Or there's just how come there's never any charges or claims for these absurd type of remarks that people make? that are just absolutely, and what they are is they're insightful. They are insightful.
Believe it or not,
never any.
Believe it or not, some years ago, there was actually a court case that attempted to hold a politician to account for a misstatement that they had made, and the courts actually ruled, I'm not kidding you, that anything said by a politician is protected free speech, even when they lie.
Yeah, I recall that, Michael.
Yep.
I don't know the exact name of it, but I do recall that case. But here's another situation here. All you heard was these Democrats scream about the 25th Amendment for Trump, but I haven't heard one of these Republicans mention it for Biden. What pen do I got? What did I sign? What am I doing? Where am I at? Where am I going?
Yep.
And nothing. This Republican Party needs to go. They need to go goodbye or absolutely be replaced. It's probably too cost inefficient to try and totally get rid of them as opposed to just trying to take them over and create some type of amicable coalition with maybe some other, people that would join the party as independents and join the Republican Party and together form a coalition and take charge of some sensibility and sanity there. But, what's going on now, this is just crazy, and I don't see us voting our way out of this if we don't, we can't.
Well, we don't have honest elections. We can't vote our way out of it, and that's why so many people are talking about, to put it politely, alternative solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're in a spot here, but, nobody's offering up anything. Nothing on the Republican side is coming anywhere close. And I'd like to hear some people's comments and everything. I got to say, for as much as I always agree with Layla, I think it was a little bit of a haphazard comment to make that, we don't need, the Trump label. And that Trump got 75,000 votes.
75 million.
Whatever he's doing, or excuse me, 75 million. So whatever Trump's doing, he was on the right path. Now, he might have not, and I'm not going to ever say Trump did everything right, but let me ask you something. I'd like Mark to tell me, Tell me what Biden's done that you like so far. Tell me what Biden's done that you like so far. Thank you, Michael.
All right, thanks a lot. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. Daniel in British Columbia. Hello, Daniel. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Yeah, I wanted to share with your listeners a little bit of research that I had done back in October before the election. I just figured it wasn't a good time to call and talk about it because of all the stuff that was going on with Trump and everything else. So now I figure it's a good time.
Okay.
I've been on the phone about 35 minutes waiting, so I haven't called for a while. But let's see. This is about Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes.
She had made a deposition. She had made a deposition in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case.
Yes.
And this was when Epstein was still alive. She wasn't under indictment, but she was testifying in his indictment.
Okay.
And anyways, this was released in October of last year, and to her dismay, she really fought it with the lawyers because she said, "Oh, I don't want my personal life out there in public view." So I went through these 465 pages of this deposition, and on page 410, I think we found why she didn't want this going public. So the person interviewing her, the prosecutor, I can't remember. I think it's the Southern District of New York, but I could be wrong. Did he, Jeffrey Epstein, work for the U.S. government? And Ghislaine answers, "I have no knowledge. I don't recollect him telling me that he worked for the government."
Okay.
Question: does Jeffrey Epstein have any affiliation with the Israeli government? Now the lawyer interrupts. and says, objection to the form and foundation. She goes ahead and answers, I have no knowledge of that.
Okay.
Question, do you know if he ever performed any work for the Israeli government?
Yes.
Answer, I have no knowledge of that. And finally, have you ever visited Israel with Jeffrey Epstein? Answer, I'm sorry, I don't recollect. Now, I'm sorry, but if you've been to Israel or any other country with someone, to say you've been to France with a friend back in college, you're going to remember that. And even if you went, 10 times with different people, you're probably going to remember. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for anyone that was interested.
Yeah, I can see why she didn't want that to be made public. I mean, that's classic, non-denial denials.
That's for sure. This whole thing, I think that whole thing was a honey trap, and the story about the sex slaves, and I think that was, they played that part of it up, but they definitely buried this part that, she had a New York or a Paris apartment that was 5 minutes walking distance to the Israeli embassy. I mean, it's just so in your face. So, anyways, I thought I'd leave your listeners with that little tidbit. So now we know why she didn't want that made public. So we'll see what happens. And I haven't really heard anything about her case. So keep us posted on that one. And I'll let you go to your next caller.
All right, thanks. We're going to go to Marcus in Idaho. Hello, Marcus. What's on your mind today?
Hi there.
Hello. Here. Okay. Let's see.
Which was on the
Okay.
today.
Okay, Marcus, try again because I can't really hear you.
And the Frankfurt School. So I kind of wondered where he's coming from.
Okay, Marcus, I'm going to have to let you go because we can't we can't understand what you're saying. There's a problem with the telephone. So let's switch over to Marco in Alabama. Hello, Marco. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing? Anyways, I guess I want to call you because for Mark in North Carolina, before, we have some major war conflict and all that stuff. I mean, the way I look at things, I think we'd have probably a 75% desertion rate, with our armed forces, dude, if it gets any worse, dude, at this current juncture. Because apparently, a lot of people don't know, dude, how angry, dude, a lot of these American servicemen are, who are not, who are above sergeant level, dude. I mean, most of it's in the rank and file. And a lot of us, dude, haven't gotten, any promotions or anything like that. My wife, she's been a staff sergeant for many years, and she's just sitting there trying to figure out, dude, anything that she could possibly do, to climb up the chain. And it's just not possible. And, she works currently at the VA right now. She's pretty much out of it. But, that's pretty much my feelings on that. I think, honestly, we probably have a desertion rate, and our American soldiers, they'd be probably worried about us, stealing weapons from them. All that stuff. And at this point, I guess, I'm there with Tom, dude, in Florida, as it pertains, dude, to immigration. Because a word that you're going to be hearing, in the next couple of years is the word generational Americans. Everything with generational Americans, dude, are going to be against these immigrants, dude, that are coming in. Because these immigrants, dude, are coming in, at a time, dude, where Americans, dude, are starting to, not see some of the fruits of their labors. Where, a lot of us have paid into Social Security. A lot of us have paid into these programs that these people are just walking in and just getting these things handed to them. And that's going to stop. All that stuff. I mean, there's going to be a huge fight. I mean, if they want to bring all of these immigrants here and think, dude, that we're going to be kumbaya with them and all that stuff, dude, no, it ain't going to happen. And all that, man. I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of at least where I live and things like that. I mean, you know, where we are, and it's already bad enough, dude, that we're seeing refugees from our own country, dude, you know, coming here from New York and California.
Yes.
And they're sitting there, you know, bringing their ideologies with them, but it's their ideologies that made it possible, dude, for them to want to have to leave their state.
Yes.
And generational Americans, you're going to start hearing that word, because that's going to be the thing. You know, as for Trump, I mean, I was under the understanding, you know, that we had reformation of the Republican Party in 2016 when he was elected, because we went against the establishment. You didn't, you know, vote in, you know, Jeb Bush, you know, their $150 million man, dude, that they had propped up in the primaries. I wouldn't vote for the Republican Party for anything going forward. And I strongly suggest, dude, that RBN and every independent media keep pushing for an alternative, dude, because, you know, we can't vote for them, dude. These people, dude, are fighting for the table scraps, you know, that they're being thrown at by the Democrats, dude. They're not in it for us. They don't care about us. No, that's why I'm disappointed, dude, that Trump didn't push forward, you know, with the Patriot Party, even if he's just, you know, a figurehead in the background, you know, to get, you know, total populist, you know, candidate, dude, that's, you know, that's going to be tough on immigration, tougher, dude, than Donald Trump was. I mean, because I really wanted that national discussion, you know, and I really felt through that with Donald Trump, dude, here, we could have gotten a moratorium, dude, on immigration, because we've taken in everybody. We've taken in the world. We are not the big brown, you know, gray welfare office building into the rest of the world. These people have to fight in their own issues. You know, if they don't like, dude, their governments, you know, they have to fight, you know, in their country, dude, and not sit here and come to ours and bring their problems here. I mean, you know, that's just my take on everything, man. You have a good day, sir.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. I mean, you know, back during the original mass immigration, you know, the Statue of Liberty, give us your tired masses yearning to be free and so forth. You know, our economy was booming. We needed the labor force. We had plenty of room out west that they could migrate to. The situation is vastly different now for us to have these completely open borders right now. And it's just causing a huge amount of damage, and it's going to wind up, unfortunately, with a lot of conflict, and it may already have done so. And like we're seeing in Europe right now, attacks on the immigrants are all over the media, you know, feel sorry for them, blah, blah, blah. And yet when an immigrant does kill a multi-generational citizen of the country, you know, it's hidden. It's like the same thing that we have here in the United States, where white on black violence is given headline news coverage, and black on white or black on black violence is relegated to page 27 above the obituaries. Anyway, Marco, thank you very much for the call, and we're going to switch to Layla in Canada. Hello, Layla. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, hi, Mike. Before I get to Syria, I just want to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. She was definitely Mossad, and all of those that Mossad recruits are sexual perverts who will do anything. Not only was Ghislaine Maxwell working for Mossad, Mossad also had managed to recruit the son-in-law of Nasser of Egypt. Remember Gamal Abdel Nasser, the great pan-Arabist? His son-in-law was the angel, is what the Israelis called him. He was the spy who gave all the information of Egyptian plans to Israel. On top of that, the king of Jordan, the father of this guy, flew over from Amman to Tel Aviv to warn Golda Meir when the Arabs were planning other attacks. So they have plans everywhere.
Yes.
And the name, by the way, in Hebrew for the U.S. is Atzot Habrit. Atzot means the lands, plural. Ha is the, definite article. Habrit is the covenant. So the U.S. is one of the lands of the covenant. It's part of their promised land.
Okay.
So let us recognize that the whole planet, they think, is their promised land. So we might as well get used to the idea. Now,
I'm going to have a really hard time getting used to that one. I'm sorry.
Look it up. It's available.
No,
everywhere.
I believe you. I used to hear this stuff from my first wife all the time. I'm just saying, I'm not going to go along with that idea.
No, well, no, that's the name they give that Israel calls the U.S.
Yes.
The lands of the covenant. What else? Why not simply? There are words like Medinat. There are words for constitution. There are words for contract, like the contracts between the states. They could have named the U.S. anything. And they began using that name for the U.S. in the 1850s. Is the first time it appeared in the Jewish newspapers. They later claimed that they named it Atzot Habrit because it was to distinguish between the United Nations. But the United Nations did not come into existence until 1945.
Correct.
100 years after the Jewish newspapers were referring to the U.S. as one of the lands of the covenant. So it's not a matter of whether we want to get used to it or like it or not. That's the way it's always been. And that is also when the Rothschilds were sending over their agents. And Grover Cleveland, as I said before, was convinced by Jacob Schiff to allow tons of Russian Jewish immigrants to come into the country. And when I found, when the internet was still an open site, and I found the list of passengers for the boats that arrived at Ellis Island, and I found my name and my parents.
Yeah.
I was shocked to find that, I told you this before, that many of them who came from Russia or Germany or any of the Eastern European countries, everything else was typed in except their citizenship. For them, it was American.
Yes.
They were already American citizens before on the same ship that we left from Tel Aviv. Or Haifa might have been the port of departure at the time. So it's not anything new. Anyone who questions Ghislaine Maxwell is absolutely right to do so.
Yes.
And Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, her father was also Mossad.
I mean, yeah, they're all. The point is that it's almost too late to even fight it. Sometimes, as the old saying goes with regard to the Borg, resistance is futile. I mean,
but the Borg were ultimately defeated. So, we need Jean-Luc Picard to join our political movement here.
That was a nice fantasy. But anyway, back to the Trump-Netanyahu administration. Everyone thinks that Trump removed the American soldiers from Syria. I have Syrian friends here who have relatives back in Syria who have stayed. And they have always reported that U.S. soldiers have always been in Syria. They were never removed during the Trump administration. And so whether we were told that or not is another matter. We obviously believed Trump when he said he had removed the U.S. soldiers. So it's distressing that information is not correct. And that's for the gentleman who said that Trump got 75 or 73 million votes. If I had been in the position to vote, I would have voted for Trump. But it wasn't because I was voting for Trump. I would have voted against Hillary Clinton, and I would have been voting against Joe Biden.
That's exactly the way I approached it. In 2016, I was working against Hillary. 2020, I was working against Biden, mostly against the liberal agenda. And they stole it. They just flat out stole it, and they were so obvious about it.
Well, the point, yeah, they may have stolen it, but the point is that you can fool all of the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time. And that's my answer to why Trump got so many votes. Because it wasn't for him, it was against his opposition.
Yes.
I regret. Oh, by the way, another thing I found when the internet was so wide open, I knew the name Trump had a corollary with regard to the Dutch name Trump. So I looked online for birth certificates and baptismal certificates. This was when Trump was running as a candidate during the campaign. I found numerous Trumps that were Jewish, that were registered as Jews, and some that had actually been baptized Christian in Holland. Now, a lot of Dutch did go over to Germany. So we have to question whether Trump may be one of those crypto Jews, and that is why he so gladly accepted Kushner and his daughter converting, his millionaire.
Well, we know that the Trump family and Netanyahu were good friends. They hung out together. I mean, it's a family relationship. Anyway, Layla, I need to let you go. We need to take a commercial break. I got a bunch of calls waiting on the line. I'm going to try and get as many as I can in the last segment. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program today, and we're going to go to Joe in Nome. Hello, Joe. What's on your mind tonight?
Aloha, Mike. Здравствуйте. I don't think that the liberals, the Democrats, stole the election. They simply allowed it to be stolen in their favor. I'd like to point out.
Kind of a weird comment.
Well, they're not the ones pulling the strings. I mean, sure, there's a few people in the know, but it all goes. But anyway, that's beside the point. What I called about was I've been up all night reading this PDF about Battelle.
Yes.
Battelle.
Okay.
And so this goes back to the anthrax attacks. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so I did a search on start page, and I went. My search tags were let's see, Squim, Battelle, and UFO.
Okay.
And I pulled up this PDF about there's three kinds of people in the world. It's kind of a long read. I've been up all night, or most of the night, reading this. But what it points out to me is that this anthrax attack was orchestrated. It was planned ahead of time by this private contractor, Battelle Memorial Institute, and they invest. Well, not only are they Fort Detrick's biological weapons manufacturer.
Okay.
I mean, they got labs all over the country, but the one in Squim is called PNNL. And, of course, it's closely tied to University of Washington and the Applied Physics Lab. In other words, the Submarine Warfare Lab.
Okay.
But, I would urge everybody to find this link. It's talking about Orcon and all the various players from Truman forward. Yeah.
Okay.
And it covers just about every topic you could possibly imagine, including UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them.
All right. Okay. Joe, I got to let you go. There's the music. The show is over. I apologize to those who were waiting on hold who did not get on the line. Just try calling in a little bit earlier tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, TGIF, and have a good evening. Aloha, America.